Our first speaker is going to teach us how to leverage ads in today's landscape. He's a strategic leader driving digital growth and market expansion across sub-Saharan Africa for Aleph Group, with extensive experience in business development and digital transformation. He's passionate about bridging the gap between global technology platforms and local markets. I warmly welcome Jesudetan Onasanya. Good evening, Jesudetan. How are you doing today?
Hi, well, it's good to be here. I'm very well. I'm doing well. Uh, I've been talking a lot for the past 2 weeks and traveling a lot as well.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's good to be here to talk to, a segment of people that are very close to my heart. So SMEs, founders are a passion point for myself. So looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, amazing. This stage is yours. We are all ears.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to this I believe it's the first episode now. I'm not sure the second episode of Behind the Slay conference. I would very much like for this to be as interactive as possible, so that we can get the best value from this session. Just show of hands, if you are here, you're listening to me. I don't mind if you can react. You can find the react button underneath the panel there. Just react to your favorite emoji. Okay, I can see some nice emojis over there. Great, 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 great. Thank you. So I'm sure that you are not lying down on your bed or eating noodles. You're actually here with me. I want to, as much as possible, give you immense value today. And I find that this can only be done, if the session is as interactive as possible. So if you don't mind and you have the ability to unmute your mic, that would be great. But if not, the Q&A section will be very, important to share, your questions or, how you're feeling what I'm talking about. Anything you want to interject on, feel free to go there. And Taiwo, just to be sure, do they have the ability to unmute their mic so it's gonna be Q&A?
No, but they can drop their questions in the Q&A, but they can
Perfect.
unmute.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for the clarity there. Okay. I'll give a bit of background, just a bit more background to what I do. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been speaking to very key industries across East Africa. I mean, the telcos, the likes of Safaricom, the FMCGs, Unilevers, and of this world. The conversation we are having is obviously on a market level, right? Um, but the interesting part as well is that there are certain strategies that these massive companies are leveraging that you can also leverage. The idea of digital is that it becomes a level playing field for everybody, right? So, for example, if a big telco in Nigeria, like let's say MTN, decides to take, there's a billboard on, for those who are here in Nigeria or in Lagos, it is a very massive billboard on the Third Mainland Bridge. It's a very, very big, big, big board, right? That board cost about, I think, 1 billion naira, right? So a big company can take that spot, right, for a year, but SMEs cannot do that, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure any fashion founder that would go and take a massive billboard like that, right? So it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of almost unfair, right? Right. So you cannot reach the people they are reaching in those kind of channels. But the good idea of digital is that you can reach the same people they're reaching, right? If Adidas wants to come into Nigeria to do anything major, the same people they're gonna reach. If Louis Vuitton wants to come into Nigeria to do the same people are gonna reach, you can reach them as well in the same channel. So the idea of digital is it's a massive win for the not just the ecosystem, but even for SMEs as well. Prior to me currently looking after TikTok across Kenya, Nigeria. Prior to that, I also looked after Meta in Nigeria for about 3 years. So I do have a very, very strong experience working on the digital space and helping brands grow. I've worked with thousands and thousands of advertisers. And prior to that role, I worked, with 250 US and UK stores. So you can think of we always use this term Amazon to Zara. So from Amazon to Zara, whether it's Macy's, Boohoo, Fashion Nova, all of this Walmart, all of these massive brands, I've had the opportunity of working with them. So think about the biggest brands that you might be emulating, whether it's on Savvy World streets in the UK or whatever it is. If you're trying to build for luxury or you're trying to build for mass market, whatever it is, um, we can definitely share a lot of insights. That being said, I wanted to just ask in the room, how many of you currently run ads for your business? Just you can either show of hands, or you can actually use an emoji, whichever, just to poll the room. You currently run ads. Let me see. I see one person, two people, three, four. If we get five, then I think it's a good number. Okay, I think I saw another person, five. All right, so we have five people that use social media for your business, right? And that's a good place to start. I think that if you want to leverage social media, it's begs to the seriousness of how you're taking your business, right? And the reason why we talk about ads is not because you can't reach your customers by just posting on Facebook or posting on Instagram or posting on TikTok, right? The idea is that at a certain stage of your business trajectory, you want guaranteed outcomes, right? When we look at Nigeria as a market, we see that we're very performance driven. What I mean performance driven is we see that a lot of founders, when they want to run ads, they want to know how much they'll make after they put in that 1,000 naira. If I put in 1,000 naira, what am I going to make? Right? In the digital marketing space, we call this performance advertising, which means do you expect something in return, tangibly, measurably, right? In return. Now, their different markets have different level of sophistication. Nigeria is still very performance driven, which means nobody's trying to waste money. Everyone is, tight on a budget and all of that. When you go to more advanced markets, like the US, essentially the West, you would see that they do a lot more what we call branding, right? So it's not necessarily about, how much do I make when I put $1. It's about how do people feel when they use my product? How does my product make people feel? Right. But you only get there after a certain level. You only get there when you're already making money to pay your staff. Right. So it's a level of sophistication that happens before you actually transit from branding to performance. Sorry, from performance to branding rather. Right. Now, because I know very well that many of you, are focused on actually what am I getting back when I run ads on either Meta or TikTok or Pinterest or whatever it is. There are certain things that you need to get correctly, right? I'm saying this from a very passionate part of my heart because I find that founders are very focused, or they're very good at the creativity that goes into their work, right? You're sourcing fabric, you are sourcing different styles, you have your mood board, you have all of these beautiful things that you've crafted. But when it comes to the business of your craft, there's a lot of gap in knowledge or in understanding on how to execute these things. So we find a lot of founders don't know how to do their books. They don't understand the bottom line, and in the same vein, they don't really understand marketing. So marketing then becomes really like a burden. Like you have to do it, and we see a lot of times people doing the wrong things. One of the things that people do is they feel like, if I can get my clothes to a celebrity, right, and the celebrity wears the clothes, then, I'll get sales, right? It might work for the first 2 days, right? But you know that that's the end of that, and it's you cannot build a business on that. If you look at your every time you give a celebrity your clothes to wear and they post it and they tag you, right? Let's look at it as a curve. So you have sales like this, and then the next 3 days it goes down like this, and then you give them again, it goes again like this. You can't build a business on this. If you get to any investor and you show them that your data and they see this, that's not a stable business, right? That's not investable, right? So it's very important that you have a consistent sales base, right? In fact, it's exponentially increasing, but at least it's not an up and down kind of curve, right? So that being said, the focus would then be on, how can I, knowing fully well that my focus or my strength is in the creativity side of things, in creating these amazing products, how can I make sure that I'm doing the right thing? That's what I want to do for you today, is to help you see clearly the kind of things that you should be doing, and the kind of things that you should not be doing, right? I already gave the example of the celebrity things, right? And another thing I'll just add to that is, don't be one of those who think that if I have 100,000 followers, on Instagram, I've made it. You'll be so shocked, and I'm sure you already know that even with your many followers on the platform, when you post, you kind of see that only few people actually react to it, or at least it reaches only very few people. So you can have 100,000 people, and it only reaches, let's say, 5,000 or 10,000. That's a fraction of what you kind of have worked so much to get. So followers is a vanity. We call it vanity metrics. It makes you look credible in a way, but it doesn't really determine your sales. It doesn't determine how much you take home at the end of the day, right? So if that doesn't determine, what then that determines what you take home? And that's what I said is on, making sure that you have an ad budget. And when I'm saying ad budget, I'm not saying you should go and invest 1 million naira and all of that. The statistics or the data we have shows that when people invest $1, they invest it correctly, doing the right things on the platform, they actually get $3 in return, right? If you invest $1 in naira terms is, let's say, 1,400, right? You would get what, 4,200 in return. So there's return on investment, right? If you're doing it correctly. Now, there are two pillars I would share with you that you need to focus on. And I'm very careful of time. I have just a few more minutes before I start taking questions, right? One pillar is your creative pillar. Your creative pillar. What does a creative mean? A creative is your piece of content, whether it's an image or a video, right? Whether it's a carousel that tells a story, whatever it is, your board or your pin on Pinterest, your filter on TikTok or on Snapchat, whatever it is, that is your creative. Now, we found out that your creative actually determines the 75% of your success is dependent on your creative. So if your creative is right, 75% of your success of your campaign is already secured. Why is this so critical? The creative is actually what the users experience on the platform. That is their own experience on the platform. They don't know how your clothes, the nice dress you made for them or you are selling. They don't know actually how it look at them yet. They don't know how to make them feel, the kind of compliments they'll get when they wear that clothes, right? They don't know all of this, but what they know, what they see is what you actually present in front of them. So it's very important that you look at your content as though it's your product itself. The content needs to be that you have to be more that intentional about the content that you put on the platform, right? When you look at each of the platforms, they have their different strengths, right? For example, on Meta, I mean, I'm sure many people use Instagram, right? We find that a lot of SMEs actually fashion founders use more Instagram, and understandably so. Instagram is, sort of supports very polished content, right? So if you want to put content on Facebook, sorry, on Instagram, it needs to be polished. You need to be looking larger than life. The model skin is like popping, everything is looking good. the picture quality, the video quality, the transitions, the lighting, all of that needs to be, on point, right? On Instagram. That's the only way they really appreciate what you are doing. While on TikTok, for example, which also does very well for your fashion business, they don't really like polished contents because the value proposition of TikTok is what? Is authenticity, right? So you need to be as authentic as possible. They want you in that rough, okay, the way you are, sewing that clothes or the way you are testing it out. That's what they really want to see. They want to see it raw. They don't want to see it like in a polished format. They want to see it straight jacketed as straight as they can be, right? So when you're looking at the platform you are leveraging, you need to understand what does well on that platform. TikTok is an entertainment platform, right? You know, if you're putting out content, try to put a bit of humor in there, right? But generally, if you know, even look at the market overview in Nigeria as well, we're very big on entertainment. That's why a lot of comedians are doing very well on the platforms. People want to be happy. They want to joke, they want to laugh, right? So when you're putting content on the platform, be very intentional. Don't just take a picture of the dress, and just post it like, oh, let's just post it. No, have your user at the back of your mind, right? Tell a story, right? Look at the value proposition on each platform and make sure that you're delivering content based on those value propositions, right? So if, for example, you're trying to do something on Instagram, for example, make sure that obviously it's of the best quality. That's one. So that's on creative. There are many ways to also optimize your creative, like what formats are you using, what placements are you using. So using all the multiple placements at the same time, like on stories, on the feed itself, and many other surfaces that you have, just making sure that it's kind of shares that ripple effect across each of the touch points that the user actually shows up on, right? So that's on creative. The second part, which is very important for the sake of time, is signals. So there's something of recent that I've been hearing a lot for the past 2, 3 years, and that's that sometimes people say that they think about something, right? They talk about something. They're talking to a friend about something, maybe about, oh, I need to get a new wig or something like that. And they start seeing ads of that wig, of wigs, just wigs on their platform. And they're like, what? What's going on? How come I'm seeing what I just talked to my friend about is the platform listening to our conversation? But then it gets worse when some people start telling me that when they actually just thought about it and they saw an ad about it. So they're like, what? What's going on? That is the level of signal resilience that these platforms have. As soon as we had these AI engines deployed into the systems, Meta has something called Advantage Plus. The algorithms that are built based on signals. I find TikTok's organic signal to be the strongest. Why? Because on TikTok, for example, you don't need to have 5 followers to go viral. On Instagram, if you don't have enough followers, most likely your accounts will not really boom like that, right? But on TikTok, you can go viral. Why? Because what TikTok looks at first is not your account quality in terms of number of followers. It looks at the quality of the content. Is it interesting? People really like it. The first 5 people that see that content, how did they react to it? If their reaction was great, right? In the sense that, and how do you know great? Great is watch time. Watch time is how much time you actually spend watching that content. If you spend more time watching that content gets broadcasted to a bigger set of people, and from there again and that's how it goes viral. If the first layer of people react good, and the second layer people don't react very well, your performance of your content will be capped, right? That's on an organic level. And that's why, as a business owner, for me, I don't index on that. I don't index on probability of, maybe to go viral or not. You cannot control virality as such, right? So as a business owner, what you need to look at is guaranteed outcomes. That's why you then put a budget. A budget means that my product will reach X amount of people for sure. So I want to reach 100,000 people. How much do I need to put in to reach 100,000 people? On the platform, it will show you. and then you put in that amount of money, it reaches those people. So for sure, guaranteed you reach those people. People cannot buy what they cannot see. So it's important that people know your product. They know what you are doing, right? They know about your brand. And the only way to do that is to like putting paid ads behind that product, right? Now I was talking about signals. There are many steps, there are many things to look at as regards signals. We have something called the pixel. So I won't bore you with so much of the technical terms, but your pixel essentially is a piece of code that you add on, let's say, your website. Now, I'm saying this because I know for many founders, you're probably, taking your orders via DMs or WhatsApp and things like that. That's okay. That's a level. But when you start to prepare for scale, right? You want to take in 2,000 orders per day. Maybe that's too much. Let's say even 20 orders per day, right? It's going to be so tough for you if you're doing all of that through, DMs. At some point, you need to have a website, right? Where, you can direct people to, they make their payments, automate, everything's automated, right? As much as possible. When you have that set up, you have signals integrated. So this pixel is a piece of code that's on the website, and it sends data back to the platform, whether it's Meta, whether it's Google, whether it's TikTok. And what it does is that the platform will then use that piece of data to optimize your ads. You don't need to do too much. So far, you're using this platform's AI solutions. So it looks at that piece of data and says, okay, we got Kemi to make a purchase today. So next, it takes that data and sends it back to the system, and then it starts to look for more people that can buy that product, like Kemi. It starts to look at Kemi's behavior on the platform. What kind of people is she following? What kind of content is she consuming? Where is she located? It looks at all of that data. I'm just giving you examples, but let's look at maybe 10,000 attributes about her, right? And then it starts using that data to find more people that look like her because it believes that if you find more people like that, they would make the same decision that Kemi made. So that optimizes your ads and you're able to reach, more people that can actually purchase from you. I've seen people complain to me that I ran an ad and everybody on that ad are asking me for money, right? They go into your DMs and they're saying, help me, send me money for food, right? You're reaching the wrong audiences, right? And in that case, there's another layer to that, which is when you are doing your ads, don't do narrow targeting. People do this when they go and say, I want to reach people that are that like maybe a particular interest. Like you do interest targeting. It's okay but for a founder, you want to be as precise as possible because you don't have time to waste. You don't want to waste $1 and not get your $3 back at least. So in that case, one of the most powerful signals that you can use is what we call audience, lookalike audience, or what we call custom audiences. So custom audiences, what it does is it takes your existing data. So let's say you have a database of all your customers. Let's say there are 50 of them, 50 people that are always buying from you. You put that 50 people into the system and it will go and look for people that either look like those people and you can increase. So you're putting in 50 contacts and it can look for 500 people or 1,000 people that look like those 50 contacts. That way, you are reaching people that will actually buy, not people that are going to come and beg for something from you, or maybe they start to they just like your post, they say well done, things like that. You really reach people that are high intent. That means there's already a decision they're trying to make to purchase a product. When people are searching online for things, when people are they are giving signals. So if I go on Google now, for example, and I start to search for shoes in Nairobi, right? I will start to see ads very soon for shoes in Nairobi because I'm giving signals to the system and the system that data is being sent to the platforms, right? Even though you're not on Instagram itself, you were actually on Google, but you were searching on your phone, right? And you went on the platform, it's going to send that data to Meta, right? And it's going to be able to optimize and show your ads to people that are actually maybe searching for your kind of product or something like that. So that's very, very important. The last point I would make is if you notice specifically today on Instagram, if you make a mistake, as a user, not as a founder, as a user. If you make a mistake to, let's say you click on somebody's ad, the person sells bags, and you click on that ad, right? What happens after a while? Maybe after a few minutes, you start seeing many different other players selling bags. What that means is if you're a founder and you have a fashion outfit, right? And you start running ads, if people actually click on your ad, it will start to show other brands to your same customers that you're looking for. In the other same vein, if someone clicks on your competitors' ads, right, it will show you as well to them. That brings into another conversation, which is differentiation. You need to make sure, especially in the fashion world, which is very competitive, there's a lot of players. Differentiation is very key. This is what the West understand because you have Adidas, you also have Nike. You also have Skechers. You have lots of shoe brands, lots and they're all big because the idea is that it's not because you want to be number one. There's enough room for all the players, but always want to make sure that you are getting a share of the pie, a higher share of the pie, by making sure that your value proposition is clear in your messaging, and your message, I mean your content, right? Why should I choose your fashion outfit than someone else's? It could be about quality, it could be about how it makes you feel, something more soulful, right? But as soon as you start to scale and you become like Adidas, it's a different it's a different game at the end of the day. In that case, it's about who you sign up as your ambassador. So that's why you see the likes of Nike, they might sign up maybe Messi or David Beckham, right, to be an ambassador. They're not necessarily doing that to make sales. They're trying to differentiate. They're trying to say, what does David Beckham stand for? It stands for poise. It stands for gravitas, right? They're trying to associate him with the brand and the brand with him, right? So that when you start to think about their product, you are thinking David Beckham. You are thinking, it's going to look good on me. I'm going to be like David, right? That's what they're trying to sell. And that feeling, it looks very small, but it allows them to capture maybe 0.00001% of anybody's attention, or at least of the share of the market. And that 0.0001 at that level of scale can be $1 billion. So at that level, you are differentiating, but at a different spectrum, right? But for in your case, for example, if you're playing in the Nigerian market or you're playing in diaspora, you don't have you cannot sign Lionel Messi, you can't sign David Beckham. You can try to differentiate your product based on one, the innate ability, the innate qualities of your product, the intrinsic qualities of your product, right? Or the sentimental part of it, or it could even be a reflection of the market that you're in. So you might look at, a lot of people go for parties every weekend. There's a lot of weddings. I want to position myself in that regard, right? And you can take that context and build your content around that. So your content is people at weddings looking fly. Immediately I see your content, right? I'm going for a wedding on Saturday. I need an outfit for my wedding, for the wedding. Two of us post content. One person posts someone just posing with the clothing, right? And I post someone in the wedding. The person that posts with a wedding gives me more context, right? I'm most likely going to go with that person. Obviously, provided that every other thing is okay. I like the outfit, the color, all of those things, right? But in terms of style, I'm like, oh, this person gets me. I'm actually trying to go for a wedding, and I can already see how it looks, how this person looks at the wedding. It looks like everyone's looking at her. She looks very glamorous and everything. That's how exactly I want to look for this wedding. So you sold the context with the contents. So, and that's sort of how you win in that case. Um, at this point, I would like to take questions. If there's specific things that you've done before and you've maybe struggled a bit, or some questions you want to know more about this or that, or maybe something I was saying you wanted to just press in a bit more, please feel free to go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Jesudetan. That was very insightful indeed. So now we have about 15 minutes and we already have questions for you. So I'll start with the very first one. And it says, how do you determine the percentage of your budget that should go into running ads? How do you
Good
determine
question.
that?
Very, very good question. So it's very mathematical. So I'll take you through it very quickly, right? The first thing you need to know is what is the results I want to see, right? For example, how many sales do I want? If you want to sell, let's say, 50 pairs of a particular outfit, right? And then you want to achieve it in a week. Okay, every week I want to do 50 pairs. Then you have to look at 50 and say, okay, what is the cost to actually get someone to buy that 50, that outfit, right? So from there you do the maths. If I'm comfortable spending let's say 5,000 naira to get someone to buy an outfit of 35,000, right? You do the maths and see that, okay, that means that my profits, I mean, you calculate your profit, you know your production cost, you know all of that, right? If it then makes sense for you to do 5,000, then multiply that 5,000 times 50. That gives you about what? About 250,000, I think. And that's what you invest in the campaign. So when you put that budget in your campaign, there's something called cost cap. You
Mm,
can do a bit of research on how to implement it in your ads manager or in your dashboard. You will put that this is how much I want to spend to acquire someone to buy. It's 5,000 naira. I can't do beyond that because that's how actually I make money. If I'm spending 50,000 to acquire someone that buys a clothes of 50,000, it makes no sense. So you put that 5,000 there, and the platform would then go and look for people at that cost and deliver it to you. It can come back to you and say, hey, you wanted 50 people per week, but I was only able to get you 20. But what that means is then that 5,000 is too small because a lot of people are competing for that same attention. So you might want to do better than your competition by increasing that budget. You can say, okay, fine. I will do 7.5, right? So your budget will increase now and you put your cost cap 7.5. That's how to do it. This thing I've just said now, if it's a bit confusing, I know we just have a limited time, you can just search for it. Say, how do I run a cost cap campaign for my um, fashion brand? And you'll be able to see a lot of details there.
mm. All right, thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask is also budgets related, but I believe the person is speaking to the social media platform. The question says, if a brand had a limited budget today, where should they focus first to get the highest return from ads? So I believe they're talking about, should they go Instagram? Should they go TikTok? Should they go Facebook? Which one? From your experience.
From my experience, I would say TikTok,
Mm,
right? And the reason why I would say TikTok is, and again, I'm hoping that, or I'm thinking that the person who said this is speaking specifically to Nigeria, right, as a market. I would say TikTok. Why am I saying TikTok? Because it's not as saturated as Instagram, right? At the moment, TikTok was monetized just over a year ago, right? So it's not as saturated, which means that
mm,
there are not as many fashion players there at the moment. So you have the ability to actually thrive there, right? Your cost will be lower there. It's not going to be like that forever. It's going to change. People are going to start. In fact, when you start making noise on the platform, like, this person keeps advertising, let me go and try
right.
it as well. And obviously it becomes saturated. But right now on Instagram is a lot. There are a lot of ads. Like every
Yes,
two, three contents that you see, you scroll past, you see an ad. So
100%.
that's what I advise you. I would advise for you to go to a platform that is nascent, is still new in terms of monetization. The pressure, the auction pressure is very low. That's where you should be.
All right, thank you. The next question is, how can you strike a balance between organic content and paid ads for sustainable growth?
Very good question. So, I mean, you always have your organic strategy. But your organic strategy is not, don't look at it as a sales engine, right? Look at it as a brand building engine, right? Because people are going to look at your ads and they might visit your profile, right? They want to even see what you have there, like what's going on, what are you about? That's the idea behind your organic strategy. It's like it's like I'm meeting someone for the first time. I don't know if you guys do it. If you're trying to know someone, like okay, I look at their you look go to their profile and you want to see who is this person? Where have they been? Who are they posting with? Then you can say, oh, this person, wow, I saw this person had a picture with the president. Ah, this person is connected. You start to make your assumptions, right? From profiling that person. That's your organic strategy. In the same way, your
Hmm.
brand, people will, trust your brand more when they start to see the kind of content you have there, the dexterity of your catalog, all of that would not inform, okay, I wanna buy with this guy, especially on Instagram, where there's a lot of distrust. They want to even know if you are legit, that you pay and you deliver, right? They want to see as someone complain and say, where's my money? They want to see all of that. So that's your organic strategy. But for your paid ads, this is when you are saying, I want to make money,
Hmm.
from this platform. That is so separate both. Don't try to use your organic strategy to make sales, right? It can, but it's not sustainable. So that's what I'll say.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you for that. So the next question, I'm going to combine two questions because they're similar. The first one
Okay.
says, what is one common mistake you think brands make with ads that's costing them money? And then the second one says, for emerging fashion brands that want to position themselves as premium brands, what are mistakes you see in their ad strategy that makes them attract the wrong audience?
So um, I'll start with the second one. Like, if you want to attract a premium audience, right? It's not an easy feat. Like people say this, like, oh, I know I'm looking for HNIs. HNIs are not on the roadside. You can't just find them. You can't just stumble into them, right? You have to spend a lot of time understanding what an HNI really wants, right? There is a lot of things about, let's say it's the sophistication, it's the detail. Like there's certain things. If you start to position your brand in terms of the content that you put, and like I mentioned, the content solves 75% of these issues. If you put
Mm,
that attention to your content, you would find that your HNIs are coming to you,
mm,
right? The content will find itself to the right audience. That's the level that AI has gotten these platforms to, right? So your creative will actually be your targeting. I'm trying to get so for example, if you're I'll give very good example. If you're trying to sell a house in Banana Island, right? And for those who are not Nigerians, Banana Island is one of the eyebrow areas in Lagos, right?
mhm,
Right? Where real estate is very, very expensive. Let's say the house is like, let's say $5 million. You run an ad on Instagram, right? Or let's say even post it on Instagram. It's very unlikely that you will find people, that are still doing 9 to 5 saying, let me jump in your DM, let's talk this business. It's what I mean. It's irrelevant to them. So typically what they see that is like, it's either they scroll past it or they just say, wow, 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 wow. So people spend this kind of money on houses, they just exclaim, right? So the people that really engage with that content will watch it and be like, okay, interesting, maybe forward it to their P or something like that. And because they've engaged with that content that way, the platform starts to prioritize people that look and behave like them to actually show them that content. So that's how the algorithm works. But if you're trying to sell to HNIs and your content doesn't look good, I want to use a different word, but it doesn't look good, people that really would appreciate that product will not see it. It won't get to them. So it starts from there. And that's sort of brand positioning, but it's the algorithm doing the positioning for you.
mm, mm.
And I think the first question was, some of the pitfalls from
Yes,
fashion
what
brands.
are the mistakes that fashion brands make that cost them money in advertising?
I think a lot of fashion brands, they don't. The word is not lazy. Forgive me. It's not the word is not lazy. It's more like they're a bit complacent, right? They just want to check a box. I've done ads, right? So I see people like, for example, boosting posts. What is that? That's not for you. It's, boosting posts, like it's so easy, right? It's like click,
Yeah.
click, click, it's done. My ads are live. People are calling me, right? No. That's not for you. That's for people who are looking for vanity metrics, really. So you need
Mm,
to actually go deep into the platform, right? And be able to make sure you're leveraging the core solutions of the platform to deliver those objectives. I wish I could go into detail on how to do that. Maybe another session on actually how you go. There's something called an ads manager, and that's what you need.
that's like
Not
Meta Business Suite.
exactly, exactly. All the platforms have their own ad manager. X, Pinterest, TikTok, all of them, and Meta as well.
Mm, all right. In essence, let's all go and download that immediately and stop boosting posts.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the next question is, I've noticed when I target fashion related interests on Instagram, my ads may reach people in the industry rather than actual buyers. What is the best way to refine this targeting to reach actual customers?
Yeah, don't use those interests. That's my
Mm,
advice. We launched interests, maybe it's about 6 years ago or more. It's like old glory. It's still there, right?
mm,
Because people, if you remove it, people start complaining, right? But the news now is you need to make sure your ads are broad. We call it broad targeting. So when you are targeting, don't put interests. Just put for any reason age. Age because well, maybe you feel like you're not selling kids stuff anyway. You're selling maybe stuff for maybe your style is a bit more young or it maybe it's a bit more on the older side. You can decide to put age. Age is okay. And if you feel like obviously female clothing, you can decide to limit it by male or female. But I won't even because a lot of times, you know, men be buying like clothes for their girls and stuff like that. You see what I mean? So you can leave that open. You'll be so shocked that the ads will not actually show to a lot of men. It will only show to men that want to buy that clothes
mm,
for their wives
mm,
because they've shown a previous kind of behavior, right?
mm,
So keep your targeting broad, allow the system. You use the system's AI solution. For example, on Meta, it's called Meta Advantage Plus. You can take that down. Mental Advantage Plus. You make sure you use it. You are pretty much telling the AI to go and do the job for you. And it does it, to be honest, it does it way more than you can ever do, right?
wow.
TikTok has something called Smart Plus. That's what you gotta use. If you are very sophisticated and you have a website, that means you have a catalog. Use your catalog. Your catalog is your biggest signal. Because in
Mm,
that case, the system takes all your products, you have your catalog, and it would pick the one that most people most likely buy and show it to them. So you can show like maybe 50 different products to 50 different people based on what they most likely have the appetite for. So you're bringing this machine to do the work for you, and it does it really well.
mm. Okay, okay, thank you. And the final question, what's your take on LinkedIn ads? And let me add, what's your take on LinkedIn ads and Google ads? Are they really effective, especially in the Nigerian market?
Huh. So I would speak as relative to the fashion industry, right?
Mm,
I mean, those platforms are relevant, but when it comes to the fashion industry, not so much. On
mm,
LinkedIn, who are you targeting? You're trying to target, working class people who have a 9 to 5 business, owners, in terms of, founders, all of that, tech ecosystem and all of that. Good. But I mean, LinkedIn doesn't hasn't shown to perform in that way. If you're LinkedIn has a level of detailed targeting, maybe you want to target CMOs. So if you're selling, let's say, business software, and you want to target CTOs, tech, or the tech guys, you can actually get that granular, and that's the beauty of the platform. So if you're really
mm,
trying to get to the people, discovery actually happens on the social platform. That's where people are relaxed. On LinkedIn, they are typing with their chest how they want to show their, you know, write one AI. Sorry, forgive me. I'm actually quite.
so that's valid.
Yeah, just want to write some response just so they can grow their whatever, LinkedIn
Yeah.
is like very fake, in that way. So you don't where you want to get them to buy your products. You want them to feel the soul of your brand. You got to catch them on the social platforms. That's where you
Mm,
catch them. And again, LinkedIn is really expensive. I would tell you that as well, because
mm,
it's for business people. So your cost per acquisition, when I'm saying 5,000 naira on Instagram, it can be like 25,000, even 50,000 on LinkedIn. And your product can be 10,000 naira and you're paying 50,000. It's like it doesn't make sense. So I wouldn't advise LinkedIn. For Google, I would say that maybe YouTube, but to be honest, not so much. I worked in e-commerce for a long time, and I would tell you that e-commerce doesn't do very well on Google, right? Again, the social media platforms is where it's happening for fashion.
mm,
It's where it's
mm.
happening. That's where it's happening.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason Dayton. That was really insightful. I think we'd all agree. Let's appreciate him by using the emojis. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. We really
Thank you.
appreciate. Yes, you'd be able to access this recording. It will be uploaded on the Minsayers YouTube channel. So don't worry. You'd be able to access this. Yes, thank you very much. I think we've all realized that behind every great fashion brand is a great advertising strategy. So, before we move on to the next session, we'll be taking a quick 15-minute break to rest, reset, take in everything that we've just learned. But before you step away, I'm leaving you with a question on the screen that I want you to think about as you enter into the next session. And the question is a content creator the same thing as an influencer? So I want you to think about that, and when we get back, we'll discuss that. See you all in a bit.